I always knew something would shift between us the moment we set foot on that cabin porch, like the air itself had been holding its breath for too long. The weekend getaway had been his idea. Technically, it was a bachelor trip for our mutual friend Evan, but really, it was just the five of us trying to recreate the kind of spontaneous, no-responsibility adventures we used to take in college. Same crew, same old banter. Except this time, I wasn't just going to be sharing bunk space with my best friend Liam, I'd be sharing something I hadn't fully admitted to myself yet. A tension that had been living in my chest, silent and stubborn for years. Liam was the kind of person you felt before you saw. You'd hear his laugh first, low and easy, like it belonged to someone who'd never known heartbreak. Then you'd feel the warmth of his presence, the way he filled, a space not with noise but with certainty. And then, when you turned and saw him, tan skin, dark curls, those ridiculously kind eyes, it was too late. You were already pulled into his orbit. I'd been stuck in that orbit since sophomore year. I stood at the cabin's entrance, my hiking bag slung over one shoulder, trying not to stare as Liam hauled 2 coolers from the back of his truck, biceps flexing against the strain like it was nothing. He caught me watching and grinned. "Gonna help? Or just supervise like a dad at a Little League game?" I smirked. "Supervision is a critical role. Don't knock it." He rolled his eyes and bumped his shoulder into mine as he passed. That, 1 second, his body brushing mine, his cologne lingering close, sent a spark down my spine. I forced myself to breathe. Inside, the cabin was everything Liam had promised. Rustic wood paneling, a stone fireplace, and a loft-style sleeping area that immediately introduced a problem. "There's only 3 beds," Evan said, frowning at the layout. "I thought this place had more." Liam didn't even hesitate. "I'll share with him," he said, nodding at me. My heart stalled, then kicked. Just like that. Easy. Casual. The others moved on like it was no big deal, claiming the remaining spots, opening beers, joking about who'd snore loudest. But I stood there, pretending to be cool while my stomach twisted into tight knots of anticipation. Sharing a bed. With Liam. After all these years of telling myself it didn't mean anything, that he didn't see me that way, that I could handle this. I dropped my bag onto the bed we'd be sharing and sat down, fingers grazing the quilted cover as I watched him across the room, laughing at something dumb Nate said. He looked back at me, just for a second, held my gaze, smiled, small, soft, like it was just for me. And that's when I knew. This weekend wasn't going to be like the others. Something was going to change. Liam and I met during orientation week in college. He spilled coffee on my notes and then made it up to me by showing up at my dorm with a fresh notebook and a 6-pack. He'd grinned and said, "Figured if I can't give you caffeine, I'd give you beer and guilt instead." We'd been inseparable ever since. Ours was the kind of friendship built on late-night fast food runs, road trips with terrible playlists, and knowing each other's Starbucks orders by heart. Where most friendships mellowed out over time, ours just kept deepening. Like we understood how to move around each other instinctively, same pace, same rhythm. And underneath the banter and sarcasm, there was this unspoken tenderness I didn't know how to name back then. Now, years later, that tenderness was starting to feel like something else entirely. "You remembered the s'mores kit?" I asked, digging through the supply bin beside the cabin. Liam leaned on the counter, sipping a beer. "Of course. You think I'd forget your love language is sugar and poor impulse control?" I chuckled. "That's not a love language. It is when you eat 7 marshmallows in a row and call it therapy." We laughed, easy and familiar, but something about the way he looked at me after, eyes lingering just a second too long, tugged at something deeper. I quickly looked away and busied myself with unpacking. That evening, after a round of badly played card games and too many shots, the others retreated to their beds, groaning about early hikes and sore backs. Liam and I were left in the living room, sprawled on the rug in front of the fireplace, passing a half-eaten bag of chips between us. "You think we peaked in college?" I asked, stretching my legs out beside him. "Nah. I think we're just getting started," he said, and for a moment he looked at me like he meant more than the words, like he was waiting for me to read between the lines. I didn't dare to. Just then, we heard the creak of wood above us. Nate poked his head over the loft railing. "Guys, small issue," he called down. "That bed, the one you two are sharing, it's kind of broken. Frame's cracked." My stomach flipped. "What do you mean, broken?" Liam stood, already inspecting the damage. "Well, the mattress is fine," he said with a shrug. "Worst case, we throw it on the floor. No big deal." "Great," I muttered under my breath. "Floor bed, super romantic." He heard that, of course. "Romantic, huh?" I didn't answer. Just grabbed the mattress and helped him drag it to the corner of the living room, where it would be just the two of us. No bunks, no privacy barriers, no excuses. By the time we settled in, the fire had dimmed to embers. The light was low, warm, flickering across Liam's face as he lay on his side, one arm folded under his head. "Cold?" he asked, watching me pull the thin blanket around myself. "A little." Without hesitation, he shifted closer, threw half the blanket over himself. Two, our legs brushed. My heart skipped. "Not weird, right?" he murmured. "No, not weird. It was weird. Or it should have been. But it wasn't. Not really." We lay there in silence, the kind that felt full instead of awkward. I was hyper-aware of every inch of space between us. How it was shrinking. How his hand accidentally grazed mine, then didn't move away right away. How I couldn't bring myself to move either. Eventually, his breathing slowed, eyelids heavy with sleep, and I turned on my side facing him. His face was so close, closer than it had ever been. And in that stillness, I caught myself wondering things I shouldn't have. What it would feel like to touch his cheek, to trace the curve of his lips, to close the distance. But I didn't. Instead, I whispered, "Good night, Liam." He didn't answer, but he smiled, soft and sleepy, and that smile stayed with me long after I closed my eyes. The next morning, the group set off on the long trail hike Evan had raved about since we arrived, something about panoramic views and bonding through nature-induced suffering. Liam and I fell into step together like we always did, him slightly ahead, me always half aware of the line of his shoulders, the rhythm of his walk. It should have felt easy, normal. But ever since we slept side by side on that mattress, something between us felt charged. Like the air buzzed differently. Like every accidental brush of our hands meant more. I told myself I was imagining it, that I always overthought, that Liam would never look at me like that. So, of course, the universe decided to make it worse. A couple miles in, Nate twisted his ankle on a rocky bend, and the whole group had to turn back. He limped along slowly, Evan supporting him, while the rest of us split to return to the cabin faster and grab the truck. Liam and I volunteered. We jogged the first stretch of the return hike, our breath coming hard, our conversation light and teasing. I almost forgot about the tension. Almost. Then came the storm. Not the romantic, cinematic kind either. No thunder, no lightning. Just relentless wind and heavy mist that rolled in too fast and made the already slippery trail into something dangerous. Within 10 minutes, we were both soaked, shivering, and stumbling over roots as we cursed through laughter. Liam caught my arm when I nearly slipped. "Whoa, slow down, Bambi," he said, gripping my elbow to steady me. "You calling me a deer?" "Now?" I asked, panting. "No. I'm calling you clumsy and weirdly graceful in a doomed way," I snorted. "Wow, you sure know how to charm a guy." His hand was still on my arm, fingers warm despite the chill. I didn't want him to let go. We finally reached the trailhead and climbed into the truck, both of us dripping wet and breathless. Liam immediately turned on the heat, cranking it all the way up. "I have dry shirts in the back," he said, reaching into the duffel behind his seat. "Here." He tossed me a long-sleeve flannel, his soft and worn, the scent of him still clinging to the fabric like memory. I held it for a second longer than necessary. "Thanks," I said, trying to sound normal. Then we both hesitated. Changing. In the truck. Together. Turn around?" I said, already tugging my soaked hoodie over my head. Liam laughed. "Wow, the scandal. It's not like I haven't seen you shirtless before." "Yeah, well, that was gym class. This is more—" I waved vaguely. "Intimate," he offered, eyebrows raised in that infuriatingly teasing way. I didn't respond, just pulled the dry shirt over my head and tried not to think about how much it smelled like him. He changed next, and even though I wasn't looking directly, I saw the way his skin caught the light through the fogged windshield, the flecks of his back as he shifted. I bit the inside of my cheek and looked out the window. By the time we got back to the cabin, the others were still hours behind us. We dumped our soaked clothes in the dryer, started a fire, and changed into sweats. And then it was just quiet. The kind of quiet that wrapped around you like a blanket, but also left no room to hide. We sat on the couch, feet up on the coffee table, shoulders brushing. A movie played on the TV, but neither of us really watched it. "I've missed this," Liam said eventually, voice soft. "Us?" I asked, barely above a whisper. "Yeah, just this, being near you." I turned to look at him. He was already watching me, and the way he said it, being near you, it didn't sound like casual nostalgia. It sounded like something aching beneath the surface, something I didn't know how to touch without breaking. I cleared my throat. "You always say stuff like that." "Like what?" "Like it doesn't mean more than it should." He didn't answer right away, just ran a hand through his hair, eyes flicking toward the fire. "I say stuff like that because maybe it does mean more," he said. My heart stumbled. He looked at me again. "Is that a problem?" My mouth opened, closed. I wanted to say no. God, I wanted to tell him everything. How many times I'd thought about him late at night. How many times I'd imagined what it would feel like to hold him, kiss him, let myself want him out loud. But I was scared. Of ruining everything. Of misreading him. Of losing the one person who made me feel seen. So I played it safe. I gave him a small smile, shrugged. "Only if it's just talk." He blinked. "What if it's not?" The question hung between us, heavy and alive. He reached for the blanket on the back of the couch, shook it out, and draped it over both our laps like it was the most normal thing in the world. His arm stayed there, close, not quite touching mine. A barrier, or maybe a bridge. I didn't know yet. But when his pinky brushed against mine and didn't move, I didn't pull away. And when he leaned his head back, eyes slipping closed, I let myself watch him, let myself feel it, all of it, wanting, waiting, terrified, and still hoping. That night, sleep didn't come easy. The storm had finally passed, but the fog inside me hadn't. The rest of the group had made it back, exhausted and damp, and passed out almost immediately. Meanwhile, Liam and I lay again on that mattress. In the living room, the same blanket stretched over us, the fire still casting its glow on the wooden beams above. I couldn't stop listening to his breathing. Couldn't stop watching the slow rise and fall of his chest, the way his lashes brushed his cheeks in the low light, how close his hand was to mine again. It wasn't just a crush. It wasn't curiosity. I was in love with him, and I didn't know what to do with it anymore. I turned onto my back, staring at the ceiling, my heart running laps in my chest. I thought about all the times I'd bitten my tongue, All the almosts. All the jokes that weren't jokes. All the casual touches that lingered a little too long. All the times I had caught him looking at me when he thought I wouldn't notice. Didn't want almost any more. I wanted real, Liam, I said quietly. He shifted beside me. Yeah? His voice was soft, still dipped in the haze of near sleep, but I could hear the alertness behind it. I waited a beat. Then two. My throat tightened. You ever feel like... I started, then paused. Like we're not saying everything? His brow furrowed slightly, eyes fluttering open. He turned to face me, propping himself on one elbow. What do you mean? I exhaled shakily. I mean, us. This. I keep wondering if I'm the only one who feels like something's changed. The fire cracked softly in the background. His eyes searched mine, serious now. You're not the only one, he said, voice barely above a whisper. My heart stuttered. Then why haven't we talked about it? I asked. Because I didn't want to screw this up, he said. Because I kept telling myself maybe I was imagining it, that maybe you'd laugh it off or say it's not like that for you. I sat up slowly, the blanket sliding off my shoulders. You think I'd laugh? He mirrored me, legs crossed, facing me fully. The space between us was so small now, just inches, but it felt like the edge of a cliff. I don't know, he said, shrugging. I know I joke a lot. I know I make everything seem easy. But this, he gestured between us. It's not easy for me, not even close. I swallowed hard, pulse roaring in my ears. I keep thinking about that night on the mattress, he continued, how you said it would be super romantic. You were joking, but I wasn't. Not really. I laughed, nervously. Neither, was I? He blinked. Yeah? Yeah. We both sat there for a long, quiet moment. Neither of us moved. Then, with a cautious kind of vulnerability, Liam asked, So, what is this? I met his gaze, willing myself not to flinch, not to look away. I think I'm in love with you, I said. It was the most terrifying sentence I'd ever spoken, and once it was out, it couldn't be unsaid. Liam inhaled sharply, his eyes flicking over my face like he was trying to memorize it. For a second, he didn't say anything, and my heart nearly split in two. Then he reached up and brushed his fingers against my jaw, feather light. You don't know how long I've wanted to hear you say that. Relief surged through me, too fast, too much. Really? He smiled, a little sad, a little sweet. I've been trying to tell myself it was safer to stay friends, that maybe this was just one-sided, but I'd be lying if I said I haven't imagined this moment 100 different ways. I couldn't breathe. He leaned in just slightly. His forehead touched mine, and I closed my eyes. You scare the hell out of me, he whispered. I let out a shaky laugh. You think you're not terrifying? He chuckled against my skin. I've never wanted anything this much before, and I've never been this scared to lose it. I opened my eyes, pulled back just enough to see him clearly. Then don't lose it. And that was all it took. His hand slid to the back of my neck, gentle, deliberate. And then he kissed me. It wasn't fireworks or thunder or something out of a movie. It was slow and careful and real. His lips pressed to mine like he'd been, holding that kiss behind his teeth for years. Like it wasn't just want, it was recognition, relief, reverence. I kissed him back, both of us moving in perfect sync. Like we already knew each other in this way, even though we were only just discovering it. When we finally pulled apart, his hand was still in my hair, mine resting on his chest. I could feel his heart pounding beneath my palm. He laughed breathlessly. That definitely wasn't just a phase, I smirked, still dazed. Speak for yourself. I still need a few more test kisses to be sure. Oh, do you? He grinned, But then his face softened, serious again. I meant it, by the way. I love you. The words settled into me like warmth after cold, like coming home. I love you. Too, I said. We lay back down, not talking anymore, just existing in the same space, in a silence that felt earned and holy. His hand found mine under the blanket and stayed there, our fingers laced, anchored. For the first time in a long time, everything felt still. Right. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, what the others would say, what would happen when we went back to our lives outside this cabin. But I knew this much. I wasn't imagining it, and neither was he. We had finally stepped across the line we'd danced around for years, and it felt like the start of something we should have always been, moving toward not just a moment, a beginning. Morning came too fast. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the blinds, laying golden lines across Liam's bare shoulders. His hair was a mess of curls pressed flat on one side from the pillow, and his lips were parted slightly, breathing slow and even. I lay on my side watching him, the blanket pulled up to our waists. His hand was still holding mine, even in sleep. Last night had felt like walking off a cliff and landing in someone's arms. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to risk shattering the stillness of it all. But then Liam blinked awake, eyes slow to focus, and when they found mine, he smiled, soft, warm, like he'd woken up into something he'd dreamed about for too long. "Hey," he whispered, voice scratchy with sleep. "Hey," I replied. "You're staring," he teased. "Yeah, well," I smirked. "You make it hard not to." He rolled his eyes, but the blush rose anyway. He rubbed a hand across his face, then looked at me again, more serious this time. "So, this is real, huh?" I nodded, heart thumping. "Feels real." He shifted closer, our knees brushing under the covers. "Okay, good. Just making sure I didn't imagine the whole thing." "You didn't," I said. "Though if you did, we both had the same very specific dream." He grinned, then let out a long breath and laid back again, staring at the ceiling. "What now?" I turned onto my back beside him. "I've been trying not to ask myself that. Same. I mean, we kissed. We said it. But we're also still us, right?" I glanced over at him. "You mean two emotionally constipated idiots who took 5 years to admit we're in love?" He laughed. "Exactly." I reached over and laced our fingers together again, my thumb brushing his knuckles. "Well, we could start small, like breakfast." He gave me a sideways look. "You mean, like, breakfast together? Are we doing the couple thing already? Holding hands while we toast bagels?" I bit my lip, pretending to think. "Only if we awkwardly argue over whose coffee mug is whose, even though they're literally identical." "Oh, that's a deal breaker," he said with mock seriousness. "You know I need the blue mug. I drink better from it." We both burst out laughing. It was stupid and easy and light, like we'd finally let go of a weight we didn't even realize we were carrying. But underneath the laughter, I could feel something sturdier building. Something solid. After we calmed down, he looked over at me again, more thoughtful now. "What happens when we're back home? When we're not just here in this little cabin bubble?" The question hung there between us. I didn't answer right away. I sat up, pulling the blanket around my shoulders and looking out at the pine trees through the window. "I don't know exactly," I said, "but I know I don't want this to be temporary. I've done enough pretending in my life. I'm tired of it." He sat up too, arms brushing mine. "Me too." We were quiet for a moment. Then he added, "People might ask questions. About us. About when it started." "Let them," I said. "Let them ask. We'll answer how we want. Or not at all." His smile was gentle now, something deeper behind it. "You're kind of brave when you're not overthinking everything." I grinned. I must be hanging around the right guy. He bumped his shoulder against mine. You're definitely hanging around him in his hoodie. I looked down, realized I was still wearing his old gray hoodie from last night, and laughed. Sorry, I'll return it. He tugged on the hem, pulling me closer. Don't you dare. We kissed again, not out of urgency, not like last night, but something more grounded, familiar. The kind of kiss that said, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And when we pulled apart, we just sat there in the quiet, letting it sink in. This wasn't a secret anymore. It wasn't a maybe. It was us, imperfect, years in the making, but finally real. And that was enough, for now. For tomorrow. For however long we got. 3 days later, the cabin was almost behind us. The car was packed, the keys were tucked into the lockbox on the porch, and the air had that strange, weighted stillness of something ending. But as I stood in the gravel driveway, watching Liam try and fail, for the third time to secure the bikes to the back rack, I realized something. This wasn't the end, it was the beginning. I swear this thing is conspiring against me, Liam muttered, squinting down at the bungee cords like they'd personally insulted him. You sure it's not just operator error? I teased, walking over with my arms crossed, leaning against the tailgate. Oh, please, he said, standing upright and pointing dramatically. I've conquered IKEA furniture. Solo. No instructions. This bike rack is just testing my resolve. Uh-huh, I said, stepping closer, tugging one of the hooks tighter. There. Fixed. He stared at me like I'd just cracked the Da Vinci Code. Okay, rude, but thanks. I grinned and stepped back. You're welcome. The bike's finally secure. He brushed his hands together and turned to me, that familiar spark behind his eyes. So, you ready to head back to the land of emails and adult responsibilities? No, I said honestly, but with you, maybe I'll survive it. His gaze softened, and for a second, he looked like he might kiss me again, but instead, he reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled something out. His wedding ring, the one he'd taken off the night he first crawled into my bed, the one he'd left on the nightstand like a message he didn't know how to say aloud. Now he held it between us. I thought about throwing this away, he said quietly, or burying it in the woods, you know? Dramatic closure. But you didn't, I murmured, eyes fixed on the silver band. No, he said, because I want to keep it. Not because of what it was, but because of what it means now. He looked at me, voice steady but full of something deeper. It means I'm not pretending anymore. It means I get to choose who I love, and I choose you. Something caught in my throat. I took the ring from his palm, warm from his skin, and turned it in my fingers. Then let's keep it, I said, not as a symbol of what's behind you, but as a reminder of where we started and how far we're going. He exhaled, the kind of breath people take when they're finally letting themselves be free. Then he reached out, took my hand, and laced our fingers together without hesitation. We didn't need big declarations or grand gestures. Just this quiet certainty that whatever came next, we were facing it side by side. As we climbed into the car, the cabin shrinking in the rearview mirror, he glanced over and asked, So, do we tell people? I looked at him, at the way the sunlight hit his face, the corner of his mouth tilted in a question he wasn't sure he had permission to ask. We tell the people who matter, I said. The rest can figure it out when they see the way you look at me, he smirked. Like you're the last cup of coffee on a Monday morning? Exactly. We both laughed, and the tension, what little remained, dissolved like sugar in tea. Miles. Unspooled behind us and ahead, a road stretched toward whatever came next. The city. Our old lives, new conversations, possibly awkward family dinners. Definitely a few questions, maybe some fears, but also shared mornings, movie nights, Dumb arguments over takeout orders, quiet touches across the couch. A life we didn't have to hide anymore. A life we'd built, not out of fantasy, but choice. I reached over, resting my hand on his thigh as he drove, and he gave me that look again. Half smile, half thank God it's you. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. Not because everything was perfect, but because we were finally starting something real, together.